Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies. And in this series, I have been sharing my trip to the UK in July 2019. I spent 2 days in London, England, and 2 weeks traveling around Scotland, visiting distilleries, meeting up with fellow whiskey tubers, and I took a 2-day course at the Edinburgh Whisky Academy. And my final stop in my trip was Orkney. Now, I've been to Islay, went to the Isle of Arran during this trip, and going to Orkney really made me realize that it's almost as if there's more than one Scotland. Going to these places has a really different feel to it. And so, yeah, I love Speyside, love the Highlands. The Lowlands is very nice, but these islands have something special. They are much more of a journey, much more of an adventure to not only visit the distilleries and taste the whiskeys, but to see some of the archaeological sites there as well. So, there are 2 ways in which you can go to Orkney in terms of ferries. One that takes you a little bit further north, but I took the one that was slightly further south from Thurso. Slightly longer trip, but it was closer to where I was staying at in my hotel. And now, the ferry trips over to, say, Campbellton from Androssan, or over to Islay, or over to the Isle of Arran, very, very smooth. It's like being on a lake. Going over to Orkney was a little bit different. You needed your sea legs in going over there, but the ferry is very, very nice. Almost like being on a cruise ship. It has a really nice restaurant, a bar, a lounge, and several decks in which you can go and take pictures. I really can't put into words the beauty and the majesty and the sort of sense of awe that I had as we approached Orkney. This is Erik Wait, and we just left mainland Scotland, are heading for Orkney to go to Highland Park Distillery and Scapa. Alrighty, once we landed, I immediately drove straight to the distillery and did a tour. Alrighty, after doing the tour, tasted several different whiskeys. First was the 12-year-old, which is bottled at 43% alcohol by volume. It's known as a Viking Honor and sells for about $45 here in the United States. Then I tasted the Highland Park Full Volume, which is bottled at 47.2% alcohol by volume and sells for about $87 here in the United States. Then I tasted the Highland Park Herald, bottled at 40% alcohol by volume. This is a distillery and duty-free exclusive that sells for about 88 pounds sterling or $127, either from the distillery or from duty-free. And then the final whiskey that we had was the Highland Park 12-year-old Ness of Brodgar's Legacy. But before getting into this, here are some notes and a couple photos of what this whiskey is all about. Highland Park's Ness of Brodgar's Legacy Single Malt Scotch Whisky is a special edition released to support the work and ambitions of the Ness of Brodgar Trust in one of the world's most important ongoing archaeological excavations, situated in the heart of the Neolithic Orkney World Heritage Site. The Ness of Brodgar is an archaeological site covering 2.5 hectares or 6.2 acres between the Ring of Brodgar and the stones of Stenness in the heart of Neolithic Orkney World Heritage Site in Orkney, Scotland. Excavations at the site began in 2003. The site has provided evidence of decorated stone slabs, a stone wall 6 meters or 20 feet thick with foundations, and a large building described as a Neolithic temple. The earliest structures were built between 3300 and 3200 BC, and the site had been closed down and partly dismantled by 2200 BC. Highland Park Ness of Brodgar's Legacy Single Malt Scotch Whisky is limited to 5,000 bottles. It's bottled at 46% alcohol by volume, has natural color, and retails at the distillery for 55 pounds, which is about $70 US. So the Ness of Brodgar is also known as the Standing Stones of Stenness, which I visited after visiting Scapa Distillery. So I'll show you my photos from that in my next video. Let's get into this one. Now, I'm drinking this from a glass that I picked up at Highland Park Distillery, and I really, really like this. I have a couple others very similar to this from other distilleries. It has a basic shape of a Glencairn, but with a larger mouth, so you can really get your nose in there. It has no stem on the end, so it's a lot more stable, I think, on a table. So it's not as likely to get knocked over. However, because it has a wider base at the bottom, it's really easy to pour yourself a heavy pour. However, the other thing I like about it is you can also put an ice cube in it. So if I were to have some glasses made for my YouTube channel, this is probably the style of glass that I would want to make. If you think I should make some glasses to make them available to and you're interested in, let me know in the comment section down below. Alright, let's get into it. So it is a nice golden amber in color. There's no added coloring. It's non-chill filtered on the nose. All at once I get orange peel, chocolate covered oranges, spices, baking spices, cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, loads of milk, chocolate. Some heavier peated whiskeys get more of a dark chocolate. This is more like a milk chocolate, and then a waft of smoke. What I like about it is the aromas are really interwoven. You're not getting hit upside the head with some peat, although sometimes, you know, you're in the mood for a big smack of peat, but this is really interwoven, really, really, really nice. And then I also get some vanilla and fudge as well. All right, on the palate. On the palate, the nose is confirmed. Orange peel, chocolate-covered oranges, loads of vanilla and fudge and chocolate and milk chocolate. And then just a little bit of spice, cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, a little bit of some baking spices there. I would say for the most part, all the flavors are interwoven. It doesn't have a lot of development in terms of a change from front to mid to finish, but what does linger is the vanilla and the spices. It's a really nice whiskey. If you know someone who perhaps needs to be introduced to peated whiskey, smoky whiskeys, but you don't want to give them something necessarily that's going to smack them upside the head. Highland Park and all their whiskeys is a good way to go. I also have a bottle of the Magnus, which I previously reviewed. I had picked up at the Scotch for Dummies dinner. I really like that one. In fact, I've also had the one I actually liked the most from Highland Park was actually a Douglas Lang independent bottling. That one was superb. So I'm a big fan of Highland Park. Not just the whiskeys, but going to the distillery as well. If you're going to go to Scotland, and if you have the time and you can make the journey, I highly, highly, highly recommend going to Orkney. Alrighty, I stayed at a hotel in Kirkwall, which was a coastal town there. Very, very, very quaint, not ultra modern in terms of the accommodations, but still it was a nice place to stay. And after visiting Highland Park, I went over to Scapa Distillery and then went and visited the standing stones of Ness, which I'm going to show you in my next video, so you're going to want to stay tuned for that. Alrighty, that's it for this video, and if you subscribe to this channel, I want to thank you very much. If you haven't yet subscribed, if you like watching my videos, I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up, share with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, and other social network channels, and until next time, Skål. Hey, if you liked my review, be sure to check out these other whiskey videos.